Alright, so we've reached the second to last home console and part of this series overall. The Nintendo Wii, like many other people, when I first heard of the motion control gimmick, I really wanted to try it out, even if I didn't necessarily have my own initially. Like, this was around 2007 when it first came out, when I heard of it. I knew no one with one. Like, they were really hard to get your hands on for that first year or so. Slowly, everyone around me started to get them. Eventually, it was one of those weird things because it almost felt like a playground rumor because no one had actually experienced it. But at the same time, there was enough proof through, different ads being run and that it existed. So it was really weird growing up with that. But I was actually the first person I knew that got one. I was kind of surprised because it wasn't that long ago we had to replace my original Xbox because of a hard drive issue. And my parents decided to sort of use this as a money lesson. Like, they taught me about, saving money and that. And I got a little allowance, and they saw this, especially with how hard they were to get, to just get it immediately when you can and sort of use it as an opportunity to teach about loans and repayments and that. Because I had some money saved for it, but I was probably only like halfway there. And I don't know, it was just such a big cultural thing around the time. RIP Circuit City. I guess at least the original one, because it looks like on the page here on Wikipedia, someone might actually own the name and still kind of operate it, but it's, a lot different now than it was then. But actually, the same family friend who was involved with me getting the original Xbox was involved with me getting the Wii too, because they had a connection with someone at Circuit City. And I don't know exactly how it worked out, if they were able to, put some on the side, or at least just get word out, hey, we're getting a shipment, you might want to, stop by. This is an opportunity to get one. Because I know this family friend was looking to get a couple people a Wii, themselves, me, and just some other people in their, family and friends. And shortly, like probably within the month of finding out about this potential opportunity to get one, I wound up getting mine. And it was pretty much a Wii Sports machine until Christmas and the holidays that year, which was fine. It got the job done. I got to experience those motion controls in a very good way. I don't even think I even really used the GameCube backwards compatibility either, because I still had a regular GameCube. And yeah, like I kind of mentioned before, like my parents never really got too much into gaming, but this was just sort of the one era where they were actually, trying out some stuff. Things like the Wii even had an appeal to them. Although where they did try it, there was only one Wii game that they kind of got into, and we'll discuss it later, but it is kind of related to Wii Sports. You can maybe take a guess at it now. Actually, to be completely honest, I don't remember if I waited for the holidays for Wii Play, because it notoriously came with another Wiimote. And, I had a sibling and, friends coming over to try it out, so I can imagine a demand for another Wii remote pretty quickly. I only ever had the two remotes, I just don't remember if there was much of a wait in getting the second one. Looking at Wii Play again, though, I see that tank mini game. I need to go back and finish that one day. I remember that being pretty fun. That first, Christmas and holidays was very Wii gimmick centered. I remember Carnival Games being pretty hyped up. I don't know if it was the marketing campaign or what, but I remember myself and just a lot of other people with Wiis and not really wanting it. And it honestly wound up being pretty disappointing. Like, it's a good idea, but the quality was just kind of shovelware-esque. I remember I had, some understanding at this point of like copyright and that, but I was still kind of confused as to why the Mii's weren't here. That felt a little weird, and you got sort of these generic knockoff characters instead. I didn't mind the generic non-me characters though in EA Playground. This is an underrated game if it holds up from my recollection. I was the only person I knew with it, but I remember it being a good time, honestly. Close to Wii Sports quality. Different set of games. I remember Dodgeball and, oh yeah, the slot car racing, the paper airplane stuff too. I had some fun with this one. I forget, because I think you made your own character. Maybe the reason why it worked here is because I think there were certain like unlockables and stuff, or maybe just the overall quality. I don't know. I don't get why. I remember Mii's not being there, standing out in some games, but not others, because this feels like one where it would have stood out. I want to say there was like a story mode too, where you kind of got to walk around an open area for like the different games in that. And that was probably pretty fun too. Got the Wii Zapper too with Link's crossbow training. I was honestly kind of into that first year. I don't think we had, I forget if Nintendo even had official ones, but I remember we had like the golf club, baseball bat attachments, and that too for Wii Sports. And I probably tried to get more use out of them than most people did. I probably kept trying to use them for like a month or two as opposed to a session or two. This game and light gun shooters, though, were really meant for the Wii, though. They worked really well there. I only had this, and I remember my sibling in particularly got a couple Nerf ones that came with different Nerf guns, too. And I remember us kind of going through them one day, because I'm pretty sure they had co-op, and, it was all a good time. But the thing I remember, though, there was like a couple recalls, I think, for the Wii remotes. Did they originally not launch with the wrist straps, maybe? Or the wrist straps weren't good that originally came with them? They came with like better ones later, I want to say. I could be remembering that wrong, but I remember they also gave you like free like grip jackets. And I actually used them quite a bit once I got them, because honestly, I just kind of thought they were more comfortable than the plain Wii remote. But then that's kind of when I stopped using a lot of the attachments and the zapper and that, because it was just a pain in the ass to take it on and off. So as good of a time as those games were, I just didn't really play them as much as I probably really should have. Like I said in the DS part, we had all of the big brain age games, including the Wii one. Although I remember kind of just getting out of those games around the time we got this one, so I think I played it once and never played it again. I just sort of moved on, and like I said with the Wii, especially initially, it was all about motion control stuff. And this game had some of that, but it was more built around sort of the brain teasers and that, like the DS ones. The only game that I had that I played a bit of that wasn't initially, I should say, that wasn't centered around the motion control gimmick that I played a lot was My Sims. I forgot if it was advertisements or word of mouth that convinced me to get it. But I remember another few people that I knew at the time also had it. That and Carnival Games were the two. I know I wasn't the only one sold on them, but this was a good time, a bit closer to that Sims experience than the DS Sims Pets game I had. At least I felt like. It was closer, and I played all the way through it. It was a good time. I really liked a lot of the customization and that you were able to do. I did get my Sims Kingdom the year later, And I remember being pretty excited for it. I just thought it would be a lot like the first one, just with, the medieval kingdom setting. But I heard in retrospect this game was a bit better. But I don't know, sort of initially getting into it, and they sort of introduced like a story mode and a lot of changes, and it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way to the point that once again, I played it once and never touched it again. I should probably give this one another shot at some point. Maybe I'll pick up the new bundle they released. I didn't even realize, I'm kind of reading it here, I didn't realize it wasn't out on PC yet, actually, as of the recording of this video. I knew it was already out, though, but I guess it's just on Switch right now. This was the other game I alluded to earlier that my parents did get a little into, being Wii Fit. And I remember we were, already getting it. I was about to say day one, but then it said 07. I'm like, I remember getting it after all of these holiday Christmas games. But, oh, yeah, right here it says it didn't come out until May 08 in my region. But, yeah, honestly, I thought this was going to be like the next big thing, that Wii balance board, with how big getting your, arm motion was, seeing them find a way to get your feet involved too. Didn't quite turn out that way, but I remember not really messing with yoga, and I forget what the other mode even was. I remember messing more with the other two modes that were more like mini games and that with the balance board, although I remember being really proud using an actual chair to get a perfect score on the chair yoga pose. I remember being really proud too, because I forget what it was, if it was like Brain Age, where they had the, I guess, in this game, a fitness score, or I remember they put you into like groups based on weight, and I forget why I felt really proud reaching an accomplishment at a certain point. If I just sort of beat everyone else in my family's score, or if I actually went down a weight class. I also remember finding out, at least for me, that if I kind of put my hands on my hips when I do the hula hooping mini game, that I tended to get better scores. Although it looked fucking stupid, which I was reminded of when that I was playing with that asshole classmate I mentioned in Melee that sort of gave me initial bad impressions there. Well, I was playing Wii Fit and they recorded that and used it to kind of, taunt me at the time. And probably looking back, I would probably think it was funny in that now too, but as a awkward, socially conscious kid, it was not appreciated. Although, if I remember correctly, I remember kind of getting into a physical altercation where I took their phone and deleted it, and that was that. That same year, I also got Animal Crossing City Folk. Like I said, I really enjoyed the first two games, but man, was this one disappointing. It was essentially an enhanced port of Wild World, where I was expecting, an overhaul and changes equivalent from, the original to Wild World. So I didn't play this one much. I remember being excited, though, to at least get the Wii Speak with it, even though I literally never used it because I was the only one with one, on top of the poor practicality of it with, background noise and that. I will say I wouldn't mind eventually maybe going back to this one, doing a fresh playthrough. I think it's the only mainline entry I've never actually given, a fair playthrough all the way through, even if it is as much like Wild World as I remember it to be. I wouldn't mind another playthrough of that in general someday. A little later, I got Wii Ski and Snowboard, which I actually didn't realize. I guess according to Wikipedia, this is kind of a precursor to the Go Vacation franchise, which is kind of interesting. I remember you could use the balance board, but I never did with this one. But I remember being a little happy to at least have another compatible game that made sense with it. But I mainly got this one at the time because I was actually starting to ski in real life. And I remember Like at the time too, one of my favorite parts about skiing was kind of exploring the resort and, trying all the different trails in that they had. And I feel like the game actually did a decent job of capturing that. So it was pretty fun. I don't remember playing it a super lot, but I probably did give it a fair shake for what it was. Smash Brawl, though, this was the big one. Like I said, my sibling eventually got Melee. I gave it a second chance, wound up really falling in love with it. Shortly after, I think, there was rumors, I think it was probably around that 2005 time frame I see right there, that, there was rumors of a new one, and then that first trailer, and geez, the website they have. I remember every morning before school, I would go on, see whatever they added, and you never knew what you were going to get. You could get, an item, an explanation of stuff you already know, or a new character or stage. And that was, the talk of the lunch table that day. Some good memories until our school killed it by giving us assigned seats for lunch. Although I think we were only a month or two from release at that point. At least, got a few good months out of it. But I remember resisting because the game came out like a few months earlier in Japan. I remember I literally resisted. I wanted to keep, the secret characters and content and all of that a secret, especially the final smashes, because that was, pretty exciting until it was like literally the last week I gave it. I looked it up before it came out. I remember getting a gift card from Toys R Us. It was my first pre-order, I think. And I remember, I'm pretty sure it came out on a Sunday because, like I said, my parents had me going to church and I would give them a hard time. And I remember having to behave really good, the last couple weeks before this came out. And I remember going right after to pick up my copy. Yeah, 'cause Toys R Us too. That's another one that I don't think exists anymore. If it does, it's a whole different group now that owns it. But I remember right before it came out too. I remember having a conversation with someone, and I don't even remember what game it was, but I remember they were super proud because for a year they played a certain game every single day, and I remember thinking I gotta do that with Brawl, and I did. I remember not missing a day until year two, and even when I missed that first date, I still remember missing very few dates, even if it was just a single match. And I remember a specific situation where, once again, my parents were religious into Lent, I think it was, where you're supposed to give up something you really like for 40 days before Easter. And they knew, the thing I liked most was Super Smash Bros. Brawl. And it led to a very big confrontation. A lot of emotion because this game was pretty much my life at that point. Like, when I was home, I was either playing Brawl or playing another series, which we'll dive into in the final part, which is kind of why I felt like this was a good time to end, because this was kind of a new era for me with, growing up gaming. Luckily, after I cooled off, I realized that my parents didn't bother to hide it anywhere out of sight or hard to get. Like, I was tall and can reach above the fridge, which is where it was at. So I wouldn't play every day because it was a bit of a pain in the ass at this point. But, I remember nights when they would already go upstairs for the night, taking it down, and they left me home alone a bit too. So those were the Brawl times for that. How many days it was. And then eventually learning about Project M and modding my Wii. And that just added a whole other life to this game. Unfortunately, it was shortly after that my original copy started to fail me. I remember one desperate night where I was on the phone with a classmate, really wanting to play. And I remember we were both looking up different theories on how to get a broken disc to work. And you had, your normal rubbing alcohol and that. But I remember trying just like toothpaste, peanut butter. I remember joking around about trying jelly. Believe it or not, despite all that Disc went through, I found something that kind of worked, and that was putting it in the freezer. And that would normally get me about 15 minutes of game time. And it was around the point of having a game disc in the freezer that my parents were finally like, okay, let's get you another copy. Eventually, my Wii altogether would stop reading dual layer discs, which would essentially be this, because I didn't have, I think the only other ones were really some of the Metroid Primes and Xenoblade, and I didn't really have any of them. It was just Brawl. It was at that point that I decided to buy a Wii U, even though I already had Smash on 3DS at that point. Just because, I mean, I wanted Smash on Wii U too, and I think at that point, Splatoon and Mario Maker were kind of piquing my interest. This was, a lot later, 2015, but I would still at that point, go back to Brawl and Project M, and it, was unfortunate not having that. Oh, I don't know who else remembers the Nintendo channel that they had on the Wii. I remember it came out later, and it was probably one of the first times I ever had like a catalog of how long I've played all my different games. And I know Brawl is still probably the only game I've ever had cataloged at over 1,000 hours. Hell, I think I was close to 2,000 and was kind of, disappointed I never got there when, I sort of realized that my Wii was never going to read Brawl again. Yeah, here's all the different channels. I remember kind of getting into the Nintendo channel in general. I just thought it was, a good news source because at the time I still wasn't really using the internet for that, I guess. It was mainly for cheat codes and YouTube. And like I said, I thought seeing your all the hours you put into the games was really fun too. I remember just being into, check me out channel, everybody votes for, a bit too, and, making different me's. Like, I think a lot of people have good memories of that. I remember even trying to get some use out of the news and forecast channel, at least for, a few weeks after I initially got my Wii. I remember the internet channel and the Wii Speak channel being there, but, not getting a lot of use. Didn't use the Wii Shop channel as much as I probably should have. Like, the big game, though, was Smash 64. I didn't play it a super lot, but I just remember being really happy to finally get that one Smash game I didn't have. I remember, getting that when it came out, like the day it came out on the Wii Shop channel. Like, I remember seeing it somewhere, whether it was the Wii Shop channel, Nintendo channel, or just word of mouth online somewhere of its, release date there. And making sure I was, loaded up with the points you needed. Yikes, that's not something I miss, having the different, currencies in that. But yeah, besides that, I only remember really getting Super Mario 3. Since, like I said in the GBA part, I traded my copy away for Yoshi's Island, so I thought I would re-get it. I remember getting A Link to the Past. Besides that, the only other game I remember playing a bit that I also got there was Tetris Party, which I have a whole separate video on my channel, because I actually went back and played through it all the way recently. I really wish in retrospect, though, I took more advantage of the Wii Shop channel, because it wasn't until years later that I kind of got into retro gaming, and at that point, or I guess at least at the point when I sort of wanted to collect the games for myself. I don't know, the Wii Shop channel was kind of dead at that point. Kind of almost forgot it existed. Just kind of had, at that point, Steam, the Xbox Live Marketplace, and even, future Nintendo consoles to go back and do that. But yeah, the final part's going to be the Xbox 360. I think I mentioned before I did kind of flirt with the idea of having the Wii and the 360 together in one part, but when I realized that, honestly, me talking about Brawl can probably be a video in itself, that it was probably too much. But there is, a little correlation, like I said, because like I said, I kind of entered a new era for myself with gaming, with Brawl and another series I would particularly get on the 360. So that I felt like was a good place to sort of end the series. So I don't know how long this next part's going to be. It might be a little, shorter to the point. But I felt like this was long enough. This was disconnected enough to sort of be its own thing. And hopefully not too long of a wait. Like, I was kind of hoping to have this whole series done by the end of 2024. And you can see the upload date. It's 2025 now, a little into it. But I guess I kind of record this and Bias Smash, which I kind of want to get back because I never finished that. I have one more part to do there too. Kind of around because, like I said, I'm playing a bunch of games, and like I said, when I reach a point where I just don't feel like I'm ready to make a video on the different games I'm currently playing, I'll record one of these. So, or if there just isn't anything else, like big gaming events and that I might want to talk about too. That's kind of why this took so long. I think the video that inspired it, that I started this series shortly after, is almost 2 years old at this point. But yeah, we'll finish it up hopefully sooner than later.